I'm always afraid this is gonna like blow up in my face whenever I open these things. Hey guys, welcome back and thank you for checking in and watching another video of me talking. So today we're talking about a camera that is like a Leica, but also very much not like a Leica at all. Like a Leica. Okay. My friend that puts my camera collection to shame, and that's putting it nicely, he recently bought a collection from the woman. Nothing too crazy, a lot of point shoots. There were also a few X700s, I think, a couple SRTs. There might have been a Canon A1 or two, can't quite remember. And then there were two Russian Feds. This is the Fed 5C. There was also in that box the Fed 5B. From what I can tell, the only difference between these two cameras is that this one has a light meter, some sort of light meter, and then the Fed 5B does not have one. Other than that, they are pretty much identical. So I already have a Zenit that I've shot with before, and I enjoy that camera, but it's big, bulky, it's a Russian, it's like a tank camera. So I wasn't overly thrilled to shoot this, just because I know most of the times Russian cameras aren't really built with. So I was curious to try out this camera, but I wasn't overly excited about it, to say the least. So now this camera was produced from 1977 to 1996. The Fed 5 series in particular was produced from 81 to 91. There are 7 types of the Fed camera, and then there are 10 variations of that camera as well. So how is this like a Leica? It's not really at all. Okay, so it does share some similarities. First of all, it is a M42 screw mount camera. So if I wanted to, I could put on a Leica lens on this camera. I could put a Voigtlander lens on this camera, or any M42 screw mounted lens. So that's kind of nice because this camera is really cheap compared to some Leica bodies out there. There's a reason it's cheap. What else does it share with the Leica? Well, it's a rangefinder. That's about it. The USSR originally built this camera to compete with the Leica rangefinder and things like that. Does it? No. Is it a fun camera? Yes, but does it compete with the Leica? No. That was their intention. And early on in the career of Leica and this camera, it wasn't bad. It's a good option. It wasn't as good as the Leica by any means at all, but it wasn't too bad. But as time went on, and the market in the USSR and just the technology didn't advance with the camera. So as Leicas and Nikons and every other camera got better and better, and more money and more technology were put into it, this pretty much stayed the same. So it's extremely outdated. It's a very simple camera. So that is why this camera is like a Leica, but not like a Leica at all. So let's talk about this camera. I did remove the top plate to clean out the glass for the viewfinder. On that note, that was extremely painful to do. I've taken apart a lot of cameras, taken the hoods off a lot, and this by far was the most annoying one that I've done so far. Most cameras, you take off the film advance, you take off the rewind lever, and then you pop off maybe the shutter speed and you're good to go. There are 3 different sections, I think, that I have to take off to remove this dial here, which is for your light meter, which we'll talk about later. Then over on this side, your shutter count is located above the body of the camera. That being said, you have to remove the shutter count. Then there is a spring in here which advances the shutter count. You have to remove as well. Then you have to remove the dial. Then there are 3 separate screws that keep your film advance on the camera. And then there is another piece that you have to remove off before you can get this off. But wait, there's more. After that, you have to remove the plate here, and there are 2 screws underneath that plate that you also have to remove. And then of course 2 more on the back, which are much easier to see, before finally you can get the hood off of this camera. Build-wise, it was by far the most difficult I've played with. This was not meant to be fixed or repaired or anything. I mean, they were so cheap, they weren't worried or thinking about people wanting to fix or repair them, I don't think at all, because it was not fun at all. Moving right along, I wasn't super excited to shoot with this lens, but it actually was really nice. You saw the images. The bokeh on it wasn't too bad at all. It actually had a really good look. The aperture on this camera goes from 2.8 all the way to 16. The shutter speed is located up here on the top, and it goes from 1/30th of a second. You have a bulb mode, and then all the way to 500. Your shutter count is located on top of the film advance. And then on the other side, you have your dials that work your light meter. The light meter on this camera is right here above the viewfinder and the lens. How it works is you point at your subject, and then a number pops up on the dial here. When that number pops up, there is a dial over here that you navigate with to find the number that correlates with that light meter. Also, you use the other dial to set your shutter speed. I haven't quite figured it out, but also there's a second dial here, which is supposedly how you set your ASA, and the numbers correlate and line up, and that's how you pick your shutter speed and your f-stop. I don't quite understand how that works. I've read a few different pieces on it, on how it supposedly works, and needless to say, if you're looking down every time to pick your settings from your light meter, and then you have to go back up and reset, and it's just not intuitive. It's outdated. It's just not ideal. What I did is I just left my shutter speed at 500, and then I just adjusted my aperture accordingly. The shutter speed on this camera is also pretty annoying. What you have to do is your film has to be advanced before you can set your shutter speed. And there is a dial on top that you have to pull up and then move accordingly to the shutter speed that you want to work. If you select your shutter speed before you advance your film, it can mess up the camera. Not only that, but it won't line up with the shutter speed that you're picking. So you have to do it after you advance your film. I don't really like this just because I don't like to leave my film advanced. I like to wait, but it is what it is. So it was really annoying. The film advance, miserable. I just did a video on the Yashica Electra 35. The film advance on that is super smooth. It's like butter. It's the easiest film advance I've used on a 35mm camera. You hardly feel it. This one is polar opposite. It's just aggressive, not smooth, no butter, skippy, not fun. Function-wise, it works, but nothing about that is enjoyable. To rewind the film, there's a button around your shutter button, which you have to press down, and then it releases the film and you can rewind it. To get to the film, it's similar to the Nikon Fs, where you have the entire base plate that pulls off with the back in order to let you put your film in. Most Leicas, from my understanding, it's just the bottom plate that pops off and then you slide the canister into the bottom that way. I prefer this method just because if I ever need to get in there and fix something, I feel like it's easier to just take off the entire back and base plate than having to remove the base plate and another piece, which I'd have to do with a Leica. Of course, I haven't removed or played with a Leica, so I can't say that that's 100% accurate. So let's take a look at the viewfinder of the Fed 5C. That's pretty much it. I mean, you have your frame outline there. I mean, you have that smudgy yellow focus patch for your split image focusing. But other than that, I mean, you might be better off zone focusing. If you're shooting anything dark or with low contrast, the split image focus in this is just not gonna cut it. So you probably would be better off using zone focus or something like that. So now that we're done with that, the camera does have a hot shoe and it does have a flash sync. I only use my phone light meter. I didn't bother messing with the light meter on this camera just because it's annoying. That being said, despite the fact that I hated the light meter, I hated the shutter speed, I hated the film advance, despite all that, for some reason or other, I enjoyed shooting this camera. I don't know what it is, but I did, and I'll probably shoot it again. The Electra is definitely a better camera. This camera now, I think you can get it on eBay for like 20 bucks. It's extremely cheap, easy to find. Quality control on these was not good throughout the years. They just didn't care enough, and they weren't making enough money on it to bother with that. So I think these are pretty well built. There are some other Russian cameras that are very poorly built. The glass is usually pretty good. Quality control wise, you know, for every 3 good ones, there's 1 that's just miserable. I have a medium format Russian camera that I was playing with. There might be a video on it later, but it let me down pretty bad. It did not perform. So if you're looking for an inexpensive rangefinder, give it a shot. 20 bucks, can't hurt. I mean, that's almost cheaper than it costs to develop a roll of film for some of these things. So let's talk about the JCH 400 film. I am a huge fan of this film now. When I originally got it, I didn't know much about it, but I did some research, I watched some videos, that kind of thing. I'm a big fan of deep, rich, dark blacks. I love the high contrast. I love not having a lot of detail in my shadows. The grain in this film is, it's sharp, it's very fine, it's just crisp. You know? It's not like overly grainy in it. So I'm a big fan of how these photos came out. I have 2 more rolls of film of the JCH 400 that I am excited to use. I haven't figured out what camera I'm going to use it on yet though. So if you have any input, leave it in the comments below. A lot of people like to overexpose this film by one stop just so you get more details in those shadows. I didn't bother doing that just because I like how the shadows and the blacks turn out. I am a big fan of that film. Give it a try. Even if it's not really your style, the contrastiness of it, I still think it's worth trying out. So that is going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you again for watching. To all those of you who just recently subscribed, hello, say hi in the comments down below. I do plan on having a lot more videos coming up soon, especially with Japan. I'm going to try and do 3 or 4 different videos while I'm there. It'll take me a few weeks to put them out, but I'm going to record them and everything there. But yeah, hopefully you'll stick around. Thank you guys again for watching, and we'll see you next time. These are so bad for you. Best Doritos ever, but so bad for you.